everyone, it's Cristina from Cristina Elisa Photography in Frederick, Maryland, and this is my daughter Ellie and my son Luke. Today in our Photography for Kids video series, we are talking about shutter speed, which is probably one of the best settings to comprehend and start off with, because it just has to do with how much time your shutter is open, how much time between when it opens and closes to capture the picture, okay? So on most cameras, it's just an S for shutter speed, or SS shutter speed. I think Canons say TV for time value, and it is just, I think it's one of the simplest settings to understand. And we're gonna do some demonstrations with you to explain how shutter speed affects how sharp your pictures are, not as far as what's, the focal point like we were talking about in aperture, but more about how much time is going by and how that makes images either blur or freeze. So Luke is going to do some jumping jacks for us, while Ellie and I take pictures changing our shutter speed so that we can get some examples to show you. And actually, now that I'm thinking of it, I want to grab an old camera real quick, because this was actually like the best way for me to understand it when I was learning too. So hold on one sec, we're gonna grab that. Okay guys, so I have my old camera, and one word of warning for you. I can do this with this camera because it is fully mechanical. There is absolutely nothing in here that is electronic. There's no electronic features inside. There is no battery. If you were to do this with a modern camera that is digital and has a battery and has electronic components, it's going to suck in a lot of, there's sort of static within the camera when it's turned on especially, and it's gonna suck in a lot of dust particles and dirt and anything that might be floating through the air, and you're gonna get a very dirty inside of your camera, and that's going to show up on your pictures. So please do not try and do this or view it on a digital camera, okay? Just this demonstration should help you to see. So what I'm going to do is, So what I'm going to do is remove the lens from this camera. Let me put that down. Watch out, Luke, I'm doing a demonstration here. So this was where I would load my film, and inside every camera there is something called curtains. This is what makes your shutter open and close, and it will open and close for how long you determine in your shutter speed. So I'm going to pretend like I'm taking a picture right now, and remember, please do not open up your digital cameras and try to do this at home. So let's start with something super, super fast, like a shutter speed. It says, let me see if you can see that, like there's different numbers here, and of course this will be digital in your digital cameras and modern cameras. Even your phone may have an explanation of what the shutter speed is and let you set it. So I'm gonna do 1/500th of a second, which is actually, it's pretty fast. And I've lined it up there with my marker, so I know I'm at 1/500th. So I am going to pretend to take a picture, and I want you to keep an eye on those shutters to see how quickly they open and close. Whoops, let's pretend we've loaded film in there. You don't even see it, right? You don't even see how that opens and closes. It's so fast. Let's go to something a little slower. Maybe we'll do 1/60th of a second. That is sort of the recommended shutter speed to avoid camera shake from our hands and just breathing and our bodies regularly moving. 1/60th of a second, which still truly, we'll get into it in other tips later on, but that's a little bit slow and can still produce some pretty blurry images. But let's take a look at what 1/60th of a second looks like. So here we go. Oh, you saw a little light pop in there, right? A little bit of light. Let's pretend we're winding the film. There we go, that's what would have happened. So we'll do it one more time. It opens, it still seems very fast, right? But it is enough to cause some blurry images in some cases. So let's do something like 1/8 of a second. 1/8 of a second, ready? Do you see how much longer that's staying open? And you can go to even a full second. So let's see. I'm gonna turn this around for a second so the kids can see. See how this opens and closes? And it's capturing all of that light?
Can I see again?
Yep. So, open, whoops, gotta wind the film. Open and close. 1 second. Oh, that's actually pretty cool because we can see your shirt behind it. And there was something called bulb mode, and this may be called different things on different cameras, but on this one, for instance, there is a B. I don't know how well you can see it there, but if you have ever seen pictures of cameras being taken back in the old days where the camera was enormous and someone was under the curtain and they actually had to squeeze a bulb to open and close the shutter, that was the person kind of controlled it by how long they squeezed it. So, step back, Lukey.
I just wanted to show them.
So, your teeth that are growing in? That's neat. Luke lost a couple of teeth.
Yep.
So, in bulb mode,
yeah, like 2 basically.
Hold on. You press your shutter button to open. See? You can look at all that stuff I'm taking in. Wow. All of this time I'm going over to Ellie. And then I let go so it closed. I didn't mean to let go. But so press and let go. And when you let go is when it closes. And that just gives you more control. That's actually pretty cool at nighttime if you want to do some different effects. Maybe we'll do a video like that because you can do cool things with flashlights or candles. Well, be careful with candles though. Don't do anything dangerous. Flashlights, we'll stick to flashlights. Flashlights, or maybe like you're turning lights on and off and doing silly things, but that might be a fun project for us to try. If you just leave your camera open until you turn it off, you can get some really interesting images. But anyway, hopefully that helped you see. So again, just to recap, we generally want a fast shutter speed so that we're freezing the motion in images. So we'll go back to something like a 60th of a second. Boop. It's pretty quick, but then if you do something like, imagine if we go to 1/1000th of a second, you don't even see that move, right? It's like no
I saw
light.
it move.
You saw it move? You did?
What?
It's almost like no light can make it in. It's so fast though. You do see it move actually from this perspective because you can see the mirror inside the camera. So that's just, it's super quick. Anyway, we are now, well, not right now. Right now, what we're going to work on is actually Luke doing some jumping jacks for us, and Ellie and I are going to capture the motion with different shutter speeds so that we can have some examples for you to look at, and that might give you some ideas of how you can work on doing your own experiments, okay, to work on shutter speed. Thanks, I'll see you later. Bye. Here we are setting up for our shutter speed experiment. I am demonstrating to Luke how to do jumping jacks because sometimes he forgets. And now Ellie and I are setting her camera in shutter priority mode, which is a mode that lets you pick the shutter speed on your own, but let the camera determine the other settings that need to work with it in order to get a well-exposed image. So as Luke is jumping, we are changing between a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second. Remember, that is sort of the recommended get rid of camera shake setting. The next one we moved to is 1/60th of a second. And then we went to 1/500th of a second. And we will take a look at some of the images that we got. And we'll let you know what shutter speed we used for each one. And take a look at how blurry or how frozen the movement is from Luke's jumping jacks. The last shutter speed we used was 1/500th of a second, and if you listen closely, you'll hear Ellie realizing how much sharper her image is compared to the slower shutter speeds.
This is way clearer than the 1/60th.
Yeah, it's way clearer than the 1/60th, right?
Yeah.
Now we can take a look at some of the images that we captured earlier while we were doing our jumping jack exercise with shutter speed. So this is 1/50th of a second. I thought I had made it to 1/60th, but I think I was focused on what Ellie's camera was doing and not so much mine. So I ended up on 1/50th on mine, which is okay because there's not too much of a difference between 1/50th and 1/60th. You can see just how blurred this image is because he was moving so quickly. So his hands are super blurry. We have lost the details and sort of texture in his shirt. His face is looking like we've got kind of all elongated features there. So this is not necessarily an image that we would want to print or do much with unless artistically that is what you are going for. You can definitely make blurry images work. But it also kind of shows you how that rule of 1/60th of a second to prevent camera shake doesn't really apply for fast moving subjects. This is even at 1/60th of a second, and while I think he was coming down here, so maybe part of his body was stopped, like his shirt looks a little more clear. We can make out more of the facial features, but look at all of this sort of streaking around the hands still, because they were still probably moving quite a bit. Yeah, so that at 1/160th it starts to get better, but we're still not quite frozen. Now at 1/500th of a second, we are pretty frozen. Take a look at this. You can see the X where I had him jumping up and down. You can make out his toes. You can make out even the seams of his pants and his shirt. You can make out the texture of the clothes that he's wearing. His eyes are really sharp in this image. You can even see individual strands of hair. So it's pretty remarkable at how frozen the motion is. There is one little bit over here, just because I think his hands are able to move so much faster than the rest of him that there is still some blur in here. But I'm not thinking that totally ruins the image because overall it's very sharp. At 1/500th of a second, you are freezing motion. One side effect of going up that high, even though we are in a very bright room, I had to compensate with a lot of my settings because 1/500th of a second is such a short period of time that it doesn't allow a lot of light into the camera. So I ended up with a grainy image. Grainy is what we used to call it in the film days, and that's what I probably will forever call it. It is now digital noise. So it is a noisy image, but it doesn't bother me. I would prefer to print out a noisy image that looks really sharp in other ways versus a really blurred image like this one. You can't even really tell what his face looks like there. And then in contrast to all of this, I wanted to show you what the other extreme would be, which is a very slow shutter speed. So look at that. Look at how the light just takes over him. Because I'm sorry about the noise. My dog is chewing on something. So his arms were moving up and down, jumping jack motion. So because of how much they are moving, they get lost because they're not in one spot long enough for the camera to actually capture it. It's capturing more the light that is there because it's such a long period of time, 1/10 of a second. If you try that on your camera, you'll hear, the shutter curtains open and close, and it's an okay amount of time. So these areas where we can see his shirt and his pants, it's where his body was for more time. So you do see a little bit of a blur from where his legs shifted, probably starting out the jump or landing, whatever he was doing here. That's kind of like a ghost image of where he was in that time, but this is more solid because he spent more of his time there. But I thought that would be interesting to see. I don't think it's something we talked about. And these exercises are fun to do if you can, even if you've got a remote control car or a dog to follow around, or maybe your parents want to help you out or a sibling. Even just walking, you can vary your shutter speed and see how much you can freeze or how much you will blur your images as you change it. You can try to look for shutter priority mode on your camera. If you don't have your manual, you can just kind of either Google or YouTube shutter priority mode and your camera's model, and somebody has probably done a video or a tutorial on how to set that. And it just helps. You can choose the shutter speed you want to be using, and the camera does the rest of the settings for you so that you'll get a good shot at a well-exposed image, but all you're worrying about personally is the shutter speed. So hopefully this helps explain shutter speed a little bit. I'm also going to link up, post a link to a blog post I had done a while ago that goes into shutter speed too. That might have a little bit of different information, and it's reading instead of sitting and watching, which sometimes we process differently. But if you enjoy these videos, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. We will also let you know when we have new videos out on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for watching. Bye.